Thank you for joining me today. It's Brian Gubernick, and welcome to the No Days Off podcast, where we believe that every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. Well, today is my birthday. It's my 47th birthday, and I thought I'd make a birthday episode for our No Days Off Nation today. So the other day, a friend of mine, knowing that my birthday was coming up, asked this question and said something to the effect of, "Hey, what have you learned over the last 47 years?" Well, 47 years is a pretty long time. And I probably learned a few things over that time, but I didn't really have a great answer in the moment. But I got to thinking about it over the weekend. And I realized that that's not a question that my answer could possibly be put into a list. I think the longer you live, the more you realize most of what you learn is only makes sense when you reflect on it, when you look back with hindsight. What I keep coming back to is this idea that life and career, my life and my career, look a lot like a really good, hopefully a really good novel or a great movie. What do I mean when I say that? If you think about what makes a story worth reading, it's it's never a straight line. A story that's a straight line, a movie that's a straight line, bombs. Nobody cares about a book or a movie where everything works the entire time. It would make just for a terrible story. The stories that actually stick, they're the ones that have the ups and the downs, where the main character gets ahead and then gets knocked back, where the main character loses confidence but then regains it and then it gets tested again. In other words, the story has some sort of arc. The arc is the point. When you're inside your own life, when I've been within my own life, living my own life, you don't experience it as a story. You don't think about it that way. You experience it as pressure, or you experience it as deadlines or uncertainty, doubt, moments where things feel urgent and heavy and even overwhelming. And in those moments, it's hard to remember that you're in the middle of something good, not at the end of it. Again, you can only see these things through hindsight. Looking back over my 4+ decades on this planet, what stands out is how often the things that felt insurmountable at the time either didn't matter nearly as much as I thought they would, or they ended up being a stepping stone to something better that I just could not see at that time. The job early in my career that didn't work out, it led to something so much bigger. The failure early in my career financially, um, that failure created all sorts of opportunity. The decision or two or three that I made that really felt like a mistake um, proved to be a little bit different over time. The seasons that I've had where nothing seemed to move as fast as it should, those challenges led to bigger and brighter opportunity. See, at the time, all of those things kind of felt like setbacks. Later, though, in hindsight, they look more like transitions. So a good novel, a good movie doesn't avoid this struggle. It needs it. And without tension, there's no growth, there's no depth, there's no reason to even watch a little further or turn to the next page. I think my life works very much that same way, and so does yours. The chapters that challenge you are often the ones that shape you the most. Even those that don't feel all that important or productive while you're in them, they end up shaping you. One of the things I've learned over time is how misleading urgency can be. When something feels immediate, when it feels overwhelming, it tricks you into thinking, oh, it's permanent. If I don't get this taken care of, it's gonna jeopardize whatever it is I'm constructing. And most of the time, that's just not the case. It's just something being super loud. The longer you live, the more you realize very few moments are actually final. They just feel that way when you're standing in them. So at 47, I don't think the goal has been, again, with hindsight, I could say this. I don't think the goal is to avoid hard chapters. I think it's to stop confusing a difficult chapter with a bad story. You do not need every chapter to make sense right now. When you're reading a book and you go to a chapter, you you may be totally confused. But that is part of the intrigue. That's part of the story. That's how some chapters become meaningful years later, or again at the end of the book. Once you've had distance to see how things all start to connect. So, I'm thinking about my life as a novel. And again, I think we have, great novels have all novels have multiple chapters, and each chapter is a little unique or different. I think our lives are the same way. So if you're in a season right now that feels messy or uncertain or heavier than you anticipated, it doesn't mean that anything's gone wrong. It just means you're in the middle of one of those chapters. You're in the middle of this novel that we're all living. And all of these chapters make the story better, even if it doesn't feel that way yet. In other words, I think the story for all of us is still being written. And having now had a few years and can reflect, I think, okay, these chapters will all make sense at the end of the game. One day this book will close, this story will end, and the chapters will all make sense. But again, you study a great novel, you study a great story, it has arc. And if you're the main character, yes, you need setback. Yes, you need obstacles. Yes, you need successes and joy and celebration. And then a setback again, right? And then relationships that don't make sense, and then they do. I mean, just think about your favorite stories. So again, I think as we wrap up today, this is the birthday episode. Don't want to be too preachy. I just when I was thinking around the question, hey, what have you learned? I've learned we're just all running this novel of our own. And the chapters are just part of a great novel. We're in the arc, and one day we'll look back on that book and be really proud. I think we'll all be really proud of what we wrote. That's all I have for you today, the No Days Off podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. So let's get after it.